Do you really believe the greatest warriors of the Imperium live glorious lives, or is that just a lie told to keep humanity asleep? The Imperium of man survives because it convinces its people that sacrifice is noble, that death in service is the highest honor, and that its champions are shining figures of strength and purity. Statues rise on hive worlds, purity seals flutter in cathedral cities, and children are taught that space marines are angels made flesh. But there is a chapter of this story that is never spoken aloud. A truth sealed behind adamantium doors and redacted scrolls. A truth that even most space marines will never learn. It is the truth of the Deathwatch, an existence so twisted that even glory is considered a liability. The Deathwatch does not begin with heroism. It begins with fear. Not the fear of civilians, but the quiet, disciplined fear felt by space marines when an inquisitorial vessel enters their system. No alarms are raised. No honors are announced. A single name is requested. Sometimes two. Sometimes an entire kill team is quietly assembled and never seen again. There is no refusal. There is no debate. The Inquisition does not ask. It claims. And when it does, it takes something more valuable than a warrior, it takes a future. For the chosen, the moment is surreal. One day they are a brother among brothers, bound by shared rituals, shared blood, shared hatred of the enemy. The next, they are standing alone, watching their chapter's colors fade behind them as the hangar doors close. No farewell ceremony, no oaths of return. The Deathwatch does not promise survival, and it certainly does not promise remembrance. The silence of departure is deliberate. It is the first lesson. You are already being erased. The Imperium tells itself that the Deathwatch is an honor, a sacred duty reserved for the most capable. But honors are meant to be celebrated, and the Deathwatch hides in the void. Its fortresses are not places of pride, but of containment, black monoliths anchored far from imperial worlds, where knowledge itself is treated like a contagion. Here, warriors are not praised for who they were, only measured for how useful they can still be. Upon arrival, a space marine learns the second truth of the Deathwatch: your chapter no longer defines you. Your Primarch's legacy is irrelevant. Ancient rivalries, sacred traditions, centuries of indoctrination, all of it is baggage, and baggage is dangerous. The Deathwatch does not need loyalty. It needs obedience. It needs precision. It needs killers who can act without hesitation, remorse, or recognition. And if that requires breaking a warrior down to his core, then so be it. Armor is repainted. Insignia is stripped away. Even names begin to lose meaning, replaced by designations and roles. The proud heraldry that once told a space marine who he was becomes a faint memory, something half remembered between battles and mind-numbing briefings. The transformation is not violent. It is efficient. That is what makes it terrifying. Nothing screams. Nothing resists. Everything simply disappears. And still, this is only the beginning. Because the true horror of the Deathwatch is not the enemies it fights, but the realization that this life was never meant to end. There is no campaign victory that sends you home. No parade waiting on the other side of service. The Deathwatch does not rotate its warriors out like honored veterans. It keeps them until they break, until they die, or until they become something their original chapter would no longer recognize. Some learn this quickly. Others cling to the illusion that survival will earn them freedom. That one day, after enough missions, enough bloodshed, enough classified victories, they will be allowed to return. But hope is the most dangerous thing a Deathwatch warrior can carry. Hope leads to questions, and questions lead to truths the Imperium cannot afford to let exist. This is why the Deathwatch does not celebrate its heroes. This is why its victories are written in invisible ink. This is why the warriors who serve within it are spoken of only in whispers, if they are spoken of at all. Because the Deathwatch is not a chapter. It is a sentence, one that begins the moment your name is taken, and ends only when there is nothing left to take. What happens to a warrior when the very idea of who he is becomes classified information? The second phase of life in the Deathwatch begins not with battle, but with unmaking. There are no speeches, no words of encouragement, no proclamations of honor. A newly arrived space marine is not welcomed, he is processed. Every movement is recorded, every reaction is evaluated. The Deathwatch does not ask what you believe, only how quickly those beliefs can be removed if they become inconvenient. This is not cruelty, it is preparation. The first thing to vanish is identity. Chapter colors, once worn with religious reverence, are stripped and repainted in the cold black of the Deathwatch. Only a single shoulder pad remains untouched, a token gesture masquerading as respect. In truth, it is a leash, a reminder of what you were, not what you are. The message is clear: your past is allowed to exist only under strict supervision. Rituals follow, not the proud rites of ascension known to chapters, but quiet, clinical procedures overseen by watch commanders and inquisitorial observers. Genetic records are cross-checked. Psychological profiles are dissected. Every known flaw, every historical incident, every whispered doubt is laid bare. The Deathwatch does not recruit the flawless, it recruits the usable. Aggression can be aimed, suspicion can be weaponized, even instability has value, so long as it points outward. Brothers arrive from chapters that would never fight side by side under normal circumstances. Ancient feuds, doctrinal conflicts, and near-religious hatred are ignored, not resolved. The Deathwatch does not waste time on unity. Instead, it enforces function. Kill teams are assembled like blades forged from mismatched metals, strong, sharp, and permanently stressed. Friction is not a flaw here. It is intentional. A Marine who trusts too easily is a liability. A Marine who hates, but obeys, is predictable. Training within the Deathwatch is relentless and unforgiving. There is no sparring for honor, no testing of skill for prestige. Every exercise is designed around one question: how fast can you adapt when everything goes wrong? Xenos physiology is drilled into memory until nightmares replace dreams. Tactical doctrines shift without warning. Orders contradict one another on purpose. Hesitation is corrected immediately, often brutally. In the Deathwatch, certainty gets you killed. Flexibility keeps you alive, briefly. And then there is silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of acknowledgement. No one praises exceptional performance. No one mourns the dead. A brother falls in training, and the exercise continues. A killed team member is reassigned, and his name is never spoken again. The Deathwatch does not grieve. Grief implies attachment, and attachment leads to weakness. You are taught, slowly and thoroughly, that the man beside you is temporary. So are you. For many, this is the breaking point. Not because the trials are too difficult, but because they reveal something far worse than pain: replaceability. In your chapter, you were one of the chosen. A son of a legacy that stretched back 10,000 years. In the Deathwatch, you are a component. If you fail, another will take your place. If you die, the mission will continue. If you succeed, nothing changes. Some Space Marines attempt to cling to their old selves. They whisper chapter litanies under their breath. They polish their remaining heraldry with obsessive care. They replay memories of brotherhood like forbidden prayers. The Deathwatch allows this, for a time. Eventually, necessity erodes nostalgia. You stop correcting those who mispronounce your chapter's name. You stop remembering faces. You stop asking whether your brothers would recognize what you've become. Because the most dangerous realization comes quietly, during moments of rare stillness. You are no longer sure you want them to. The Deathwatch does not force loyalty through devotion or faith. It forces it through isolation. Through the slow understanding that the only people who can truly understand you now, are just as trapped as you are. And even that bond is fragile. Temporary. Conditional. By the time the first real mission briefing begins, the transformation is already well underway. You are still a Space Marine in body. Still deadly. Still disciplined. But something fundamental has shifted. The Deathwatch has not taken your strength. It has taken your certainty. And in a galaxy where doubt kills faster than any blade, that may be the cruelest weapon of all. What kind of brotherhood is forged when unity is enforced at gunpoint and trust is considered a tactical risk? The kill team is where the Deathwatch's true cruelty reveals itself. Not in the enemies it selects, but in the warriors it forces together. Space Marines are not interchangeable. Each chapter is shaped by a Primarch's legacy, a unique philosophy of war, and a worldview hammered into their minds through decades of indoctrination. To place them side by side is not cooperation, it is controlled collision. An Ultramarine stands rigid, measured, reciting doctrine in his thoughts like a sacred script. A Space Wolf prowls beside him, contemptuous of restraint, guided by instinct and barely restrained fury. Across from them, a Dark Angel watches in silence, carrying secrets so heavy they bend his posture. A Black Templar mutters prayers under his breath, convinced that faith alone will carry him through. None of these warriors should trust one another. Many of them have historical reasons not to. The Deathwatch does not care. Orders are given without explanation. Roles are assigned without debate. Authority does not flow from rank or honor, but from appointment. The kill team leader is not always the strongest, the oldest, or the most respected. He is the one the Deathwatch believes will complete the objective, no matter the cost. Resentment simmers immediately, pride bristles, but disobedience is unthinkable, not because of punishment, but because failure has consequences that ripple far beyond the team. Training missions are designed to expose fault lines. A space wolf is ordered to hold position when every instinct screams to charge. An ultramarine is forced to abandon a perfect tactical plan when reality shifts mid-operation. A dark angel is paired with a warrior who asks too many questions. Every exercise is a test of restraint, adaptability, and silent endurance. The Deathwatch watches closely, not to help, but to learn how far each warrior can be pushed before something breaks. Trust, when it forms, is thin and conditional. It is built not on shared belief, but on repeated survival. You trust the warrior beside you because he has not let you die, yet. That is enough. There is no brotherly warmth here. No celebratory camaraderie. Jokes are rare, and when they occur, they are sharp-edged and humorless. Laughter feels dangerous, like an indulgence that might be punished. The Deathwatch understands something most chapters refuse to acknowledge: brotherhood is a vulnerability. Care too much, and hesitation creeps in. Grieve too deeply, and focus fractures. In the Deathwatch, attachments are liabilities. This is why kill teams are rotated, reassembled, broken apart without warning. Just when familiarity begins to form, it is ripped away. Not as punishment, but as doctrine. Conflicts are inevitable. They are also unresolved. When tempers flare, no one intervenes unless it threatens mission effectiveness. A fight in the training hall is allowed to play out until someone collapses. Words are exchanged that would be considered heretical within their home chapters. No apologies follow. None are required. The Deathwatch is not interested in harmony. Only output. Over time, something unsettling happens. The friction becomes normal. Hatred dulls into indifference. The Ultramarine stops correcting the Space Wolf. The Black Templar stops preaching. The Dark Angel stops hiding, at least, partially. Not because trust has been earned, but because energy spent on resentment is energy not spent surviving. This is the Deathwatch's silent victory. It does not reconcile differences. It exhausts them. In battle, this fractured unity becomes brutally efficient. Each warrior fights according to his nature, but within a framework that forces overlap. One covers while another advances. One sacrifices positioning so another can strike. No words are exchanged. No gratitude expected. Survival becomes transactional. You protect the others because they are useful, not because you care. And yet, in rare moments, when the enemy is overwhelming, when the mission teeters on failure, when death feels inevitable, something almost like brotherhood flickers to life. A space marine steps into the line of fire without hesitation. Another holds a position long after retreat orders are given. These acts are never discussed afterward. Acknowledging them would make them real. In reality, in the Deathwatch, is dangerous. By the time a kill team earns its first true victory, it no longer questions the nature of its unity. It accepts it for what it is: temporary, functional, and disposable. Just like everything else in the Deathwatch. Because here, brotherhood is not a bond. It is a weapon, and weapons are meant to be used, until they break. What does victory mean when no one is allowed to know you ever fought at all? The wars of the Deathwatch do not appear in Imperial records. There are no campaign badges forged in their honor, no battle hymns sung by the ecclesiarchy, no monuments raised to mark their triumphs. The conflicts they fight are too dangerous to acknowledge, too horrifying to explain, and too destabilizing for the fragile illusion that humanity still understands its own galaxy. These are wars without witnesses, without applause, and without mercy. When a Deathwatch kill team is deployed, it is rarely to win a war. That misconception belongs to the Astra Militarum, to grand crusades and grinding sieges where territory changes hands and casualty numbers are tallied like currency. The Deathwatch is sent to interfere, to delay, to sabotage, to erase a threat before it can be named. Their missions are scalpel strikes against cancers the Imperium refuses to admit are growing inside it. Orders arrive stripped of context. A world is designated, a time window is defined. An objective is stated in cold, technical language that avoids words like survival or extraction. Sometimes the task is simple: destroy a Xenos relic before it can be studied. Sometimes it is obscene: assassinate an entire research enclave of Imperial citizens who have learned too much. The Deathwatch does not question why. It cannot afford to. The enemies they face are not the kind taught to guardsmen in training manuals. These are not simple hordes to be repelled. With enough bodies and ammunition, the Deathwatch fights things that learn as fast as they kill. creatures that adapt mid-battle, intelligences that speak in dead languages and promise truths that rot the mind. Against such foes, conventional warfare is suicide. Precision becomes the only form of mercy. Casualties are expected, planned for, sometimes required. A kill team might be sent knowing full well that only one or two will return, if any. There are no reinforcements, no heroic last stands meant to inspire others. A Deathwatch Marine dies in silence, his gene seed recovered if possible, his existence otherwise wiped from record. If the mission succeeds, his death is justified. If it fails, his name vanishes anyway. Survival brings no relief. A returning warrior is not congratulated. He is interrogated. Every memory of the mission is examined for contamination, biological, psychological, ideological. Exposure to certain Xenos truths is considered more dangerous than injury. Some Marines return changed in subtle ways, slower to speak, quicker to violence, eyes lingering too long on nothing at all. These changes are noted, filed, stored for later judgment. The cruelest missions are those that succeed perfectly. A Deathwatch kill team may eradicate an entire Xenos splinter thread before it ever reaches Imperial awareness. A hive fleet diverted, a Necron tomb rendered inert, a species extinguished before it can be named. Billions of Imperial lives saved without ever knowing they were in danger. And yet, when the warriors return, there is no sense of accomplishment, only a hollow absence. Victory feels identical to failure when neither earns acknowledgement. Over time, the warriors begin to understand the true purpose of these wars. They are not meant to restore hope. They are meant to preserve ignorance. The Imperium survives not because it is strong, but because it refuses to confront the full scale of what hunts it in the dark. The Deathwatch exists to ensure that refusal remains possible. Some missions demand the ultimate contradiction, preserving humanity by killing humans. Worlds quarantined not because they are lost, but because they are aware. A population that has seen too much Xenos technology, learned too much forbidden science, or survived contact with something that should not exist is deemed unstable. The Deathwatch is dispatched to cleanse the evidence. Cities burn, data vaults are shattered, survivors are eliminated with clinical efficiency. These are the moments that fracture even the strongest minds. A space marine is forged to protect humanity, not erase it. Yet the Deathwatch offers no alternatives. Mercy, in this context, is heresy. Doubt is treason, and refusal is impossible. The trigger is pulled, the objective is completed, and another invisible war ends without a trace. After enough missions, the concept of home front becomes meaningless. There is only the next deployment, the next classified threat, the next quiet descent into hell. Time blurs. Victories stack like unmarked graves. The galaxy does not become safer, it merely becomes quieter. And in that silence, a realization settles in, heavy and unavoidable. The Deathwatch is not fighting to win the future. It is fighting to delay the end. One secret war at a time. Who do you truly serve when the ones giving orders are more feared than the enemies you fight? Every warrior of the Deathwatch eventually learns that the Xenos are not their masters. They are merely the justification. The true authority standing behind every sealed order, every classified deployment, every erased victory, is the Inquisition. Not as a distant institution, but as a constant presence, watching, listening, judging. The Deathwatch does not exist beside the Inquisition. It exists under it. An Inquisitor does not inspire loyalty. He inspires compliance. His authority does not come from strength of arms or battlefield experience, but from absolute permission. Permission to command, permission to condemn, permission to erase entire worlds if the calculus of survival demands it. When an Inquisitor enters a watch fortress, even space marines feel the weight of something unnatural. This is not respect, it is instinctive dread. The relationship is simple in theory and suffocating in practice. The Deathwatch provides results. The Inquisition decides whether those results are acceptable. A mission can be deemed a success and still result in executions. A kill team can follow orders perfectly and still be declared compromised. Knowledge, not failure, is the greatest crime. To know too much is to become a liability, no matter how loyal or effective you are. Briefings grow more opaque with time. Early missions explain objectives clearly enough: destroy, retrieve, assassinate. Later ones speak in abstractions. Containment priority, ideological risk, cognitive exposure thresholds. These phrases are warnings disguised as instructions. They signal that what lies ahead is not merely dangerous to the body, but to the mind. And the Inquisition is watching closely to see what survives intact. Surveillance is constant. Vox traffic monitored. Mission recordings reviewed frame by frame. Post-operation interrogations are less about what happened and more about what was felt. Emotional responses are cataloged. Hesitation noted. Anger measured. Curiosity flagged. A space marine who asks too many questions is not corrected, he is remembered. Some warriors disappear between deployments. No announcement is made. Their names are not struck from rosters, because rosters are fluid by design. It is understood without being said, the Inquisition has passed judgment. Whether the Marine was mind-wiped, reassigned, imprisoned, or executed is irrelevant. Speculation serves no purpose. Fear does. The most unsettling truth is that the Inquisition does not always act as a unified will. Different Ordos issue conflicting directives. One Inquisitor demands extermination, another insists on observation. The Deathwatch is forced to obey whichever authority arrives first, knowing full well that the other may later condemn the outcome. In such moments, the kill team realizes the depth of its powerlessness. There is no correct choice, only survival through obedience. Mind cleansing becomes a looming threat. Not punishment, but maintenance. Memories deemed hazardous are excised. Experiences blurred. Emotional spikes dulled. A Marine awakens knowing he has fought, but not remembering why, or against what. At first, this seems like mercy. Later, it becomes terrifying. If your memories can be taken so easily, what part of you is truly yours? Some veterans begin to fear success more than failure. A flawless mission invites scrutiny. Anomalies draw attention. Attention invites investigation, and investigation often ends in silence. A sloppy but effective operation is sometimes safer than perfection. This quiet calculus seeps into behavior. Risks are weighed not just against death, but against notice. And yet, despite all this, the Deathwatch continues to serve. Not because it trusts the Inquisition, but because the alternative is unthinkable. Without this leash, the Imperium would tear itself apart chasing truths it cannot survive. The warriors understand this, even as it crushes them. They are not defenders of humanity's body, they are wardens of its ignorance. In rare moments of candor, a veteran may realize the final irony. The Deathwatch exists to fight monsters. The Inquisition exists to decide what counts as one. And should a space marine ever cross that invisible line, should he become too altered, too knowledgeable, too dangerous, the judgment will be swift. No trial, no honor duel, no last words. Just a report stamped resolved. Because in the end, the Deathwatch does not answer to heroes. It answers to fear wearing a human face. What happens to a warrior who survives long enough to realize that survival itself is the crime? Time moves strangely within the Deathwatch. Campaigns blur together. Decades pass unnoticed. For a space marine, longevity is expected, but within the Deathwatch, it becomes suspicious. Each additional year of survival adds weight, not prestige. Experience is valuable, yes, but it is also dangerous. Veterans carry too much memory, too many truths layered over one another like scars that never fade. These warriors are no longer deployed as expendable assets. They are treated as tools of precision, brought out for the worst assignments, the most volatile threats. Missions where failure would doom entire sectors. Missions where success would reveal something the Imperium would rather not know. The irony is bitter. The better you are at your duty, the deeper you are dragged into it. The psychological toll is relentless. Deathwatch veterans do not dream of glory or reunion. They dream of patterns, of enemies that change shape mid-battle, of voices whispering tactical impossibilities, of worlds that look familiar but are not. Hypervigilance becomes instinct. Rest feels unsafe. Silence feels wrong. The war never truly leaves, even when the armor is removed. Emotion dulls first. Rage becomes controlled, surgical. Fear turns into calculation. Compassion erodes into abstraction. A veteran no longer thinks in terms of people, but of variables, assets, threats, acceptable losses. This transformation is not imposed. It is adapted, necessary, and deeply unsettling to those who witness it. Among newer recruits, veterans inspire conflicting reactions. Some see them as living legends, proof that endurance is possible. Others sense something off, something hollow behind the discipline. Veterans rarely speak of their past. When they do, the stories are incomplete, disjointed, missing key details. Not always because of mind wipes, but because memory itself has been eroded by repetition and trauma. There is no promotion ladder in the Deathwatch that leads to peace. Command positions do not offer relief, they offer responsibility. A watch captain must decide which kill teams are sent on missions with no extraction plans. He must approve operations that will erase entire populations. He must maintain discipline while knowing full well that loyalty is conditional and temporary. Authority becomes another burden, not a reward. Some veterans are deemed too valuable to return to their chapters. They are offered the illusion of choice: remain and continue serving, or accept reassignment elsewhere within the Inquisition's reach. Both options lead to the same destination: permanent separation from the life they once knew. These Marines are no longer sons of their primarchs. They are relics of a war that cannot be spoken of. Others begin to crack, not in obvious ways, not in the frothing madness the Imperium associates with corruption. Their breaking is quiet. They become overly meticulous, obsessive about procedure, intolerant of deviation, or they grow reckless, pushing themselves and others harder with each mission, as if daring the galaxy to finally kill them. Either way, they draw attention. And attention is fatal. The Deathwatch monitors its veterans carefully. Medical evaluations become more frequent. Psychological screenings more invasive. Inquisitorial presence more pronounced. The question is never asked aloud, but it hangs in the air: is this warrior still controllable? Some veterans vanish. After these evaluations, others return altered, calmer, emptier, compliant. They do not speak of what was taken from them. They do not complain. They simply continue. These are often the most terrifying of all. Warriors who fight flawlessly, feel nothing, and remember only what they are permitted to remember. And yet, there are those who endure without breaking. They adapt without losing themselves entirely. These Marines become something rare and dangerous: witnesses. They understand the full shape of the war. They see patterns where others see isolated threats. They recognize that the Deathwatch is not a temporary measure, but a permanent scar carved into the Imperium's survival strategy. For these veterans, a grim truth becomes impossible to ignore. The Deathwatch was never meant to save them. It was meant to use them until there was nothing left worth saving. And still, they march to the next briefing. Because stopping would mean thinking. And thinking, in the Deathwatch, is the first step toward erasure. If the watch never ends, then what, in the end, was it all for? There comes a point, rare, unspoken, and deeply feared, when a Deathwatch warrior understands the full shape of the lie. Not in a sudden revelation, not through forbidden data or heretical confession, but through accumulation. Too many missions, too many erased worlds, too many brothers who never returned, and too many who did, empty. The realization is simple, devastating, and impossible to unlearn. The Deathwatch is not a shield. It is a dam, holding back a flood that cannot be stopped, only delayed. The galaxy is not getting safer. The enemies are not diminishing. Every victory merely buys time, and time is spent immediately on the next crisis. Tyrannid tendrils burn away only for new ones to emerge. Necron dynasties fall silent in one sector and awaken in another. Xenos horrors are erased before they are named, but naming them was never the real danger. Understanding them was. And so the Deathwatch continues, not because it believes it can win, but because the Imperium cannot survive knowing how badly it is losing. For some warriors, this knowledge becomes unbearable. They do not rebel. Rebellion is crude and pointless. They simply grow tired, their movements slow, their reactions dull by fractions of a second. In battle, they hold the line a little too long. They volunteer for objectives no one expects them to return from. Their deaths are efficient, clean, and easily justified. The Deathwatch records the mission as a success and moves on. Others are sent back to their chapters. Returned, they are greeted as heroes, scarred veterans bearing silent honor. Their brothers sense the difference immediately. These warriors no longer pray the same way, no longer speak with the same fire. They react too quickly to things no one else notices. They flinch at symbols they cannot explain. They carry knowledge they will never share, bound by oaths enforced by fear stronger than loyalty. Some chapters revere them, others fear them, a few quietly exile them. None ever truly welcome them home. And then there are those who never leave at all. Watch captains who remain century after century. Instructors who shape new killed teams with hands that have sent thousands to their deaths. Living relics who understand that the Deathwatch is not a phase in a space marine's life, but a destination. These warriors no longer ask when their service will end. They already know the answer. It ends when they do. Somewhere, at this very moment, an inquisitorial vessel translates into real space near a loyal chapter's homeworld. Its message is brief, clinical, a request for names. Somewhere else, a watch fortress prepares new armor. Fresh black ceramite, a single untouched shoulder pad, waiting like a mockery of identity. New warriors will arrive soon, carrying pride, certainty, and belief. All of it will be taken from them. Quietly, efficiently, forever. The Imperium will endure another day. Its citizens will sleep without knowing what nearly devoured them in the dark. Statues will still stand. Hymns will still be sung. Hope will still be manufactured and distributed like ration food. And far from the light, the Deathwatch will continue its eternal vigil. Not as heroes, not as martyrs, but as the Imperium's unspoken confession. That humanity survives not because it is righteous, but because someone, somewhere, is willing to become a monster in its name. And the watch never ends.